primarily work in enterprise AI, enterprise products. Government is one of our biggest customers. So essentially, what I wanted to talk about today was that when you're an emerging economy, how should you use AI and how AI should be a catalyst to revenue growth. And we will talk about the things that we feel that the banking industry in Pakistan is getting right. We talk a lot about the things that we have gotten wrong, but I feel like when it comes to AI, and even if those are baby steps right now, I think there are a lot of things that we are getting right in AI, and we're going to take a journey through economic history of technology adoption, and we're going to see what the state is today and where are we heading going forward. So when it comes to AI adoption globally, it's complete carnage, right? There was an MIT report that said that 95% of enterprise pilots are not going into production across multiple regions. It's just it's complete carnage. You have 40% of AI agent projects that will be cancelled very soon, and I wanted to talk about why is that happening globally and why that is not happening in Pakistan, because when you see around, most of those AI projects in Pakistan are sort of scaling. Even again, if those are baby steps, they're sort of like scaling, and want to talk about what is it that we are getting right. And just another note on this, that there is a underconsumption of AI or agentic applications across the globe. We have spent a lot of money on foundational models. We're putting in these data centers. We're doing all of that. But when it comes to actual agentic application, this is a problem that across the globe, everybody is sort of facing. And this underutilization of agentic applications, them not being used, I feel like there is a common denominator in terms of things that might have gone wrong. So I think Pakistan, in our opinion, is sort of like an unexpected surprise, right? I think when it comes to the approach that the bankers in Pakistan have taken, and this is, we work with the banking industry, but we work a lot with like other industries too. And I think this is an external sort of like point of view. As we look into banking industry, this is what we have found, that one of the things that the banking in Pakistan is getting right is that they are not looking at AI as a means to replace people. We are an emerging economy. We have enough growth to look forward to. Using AI as a mechanism to reduce cost is not the best utilization. I think essentially what we have been doing, and I think that has worked very well for us, is that we have focused on how do we use AI to grow our business. So even if you take a few examples of some of the banks here, right? I feel like that there's a lot to learn from the work that they have done. So if you take, for instance, Alfala, with Alfala, they are combining you have a customer that exists in the physical realm and they exist on the digital realm. They're trying to combine that to understand the customer better. You have Faisal Bank that is utilizing AI and RAG applications on their local branches. You have HPL and you have Bank Al Habib that are completely revamping, sort of like using AI and revamping their customer experience. And I think one of the things that we have seen across the board is that it's mostly about improving the customer experience. And how do you improve the customer experience? How do you learn more about the customer so that you can sell more, provide better services, all of that for the eventual goal of revenue generation. And I feel like that has worked very well so far in Pakistan as compared to most of our counterparts globally. So now that brings me to the emerging economy bit and the economics of growth as we see, right? We feel like that if you are an emerging economy, we are growing really fast, right? We hardly have any inefficiencies, right? The labor cost is very cheap in Pakistan. So regardless of how cheap a token becomes, the human in Pakistan is going to be cheaper. there was a General Saab, he once gave me an advice. We had a product. He said to me कि बंदा बहुत है हमारे पास, right? And I agree, बंदा बहुत है हमारे पास, right? So instead of using AI for reducing the cost of human, I feel like the growth element is the more important one that we need to focus on. And every dollar that is spent on generating growth has much higher returns than spending the same dollar for reducing your cost. So every software that you're buying, if that is for the purpose of reducing your cost, it will not return the same value as if the same dollar was spent on generating more growth. So this is one of the lessons that we have seen across the board. And I think if we were to talk about technology adoption, this is kind of like the formula that has held true across history, right? When it comes to the new technology adoption, it is basically the cost of changing social behavior plus you have the net cost that I save while I adopt a new technology. One of the things that's mostly is forgotten is that there is a cost of infrastructure, there is a cost of changing social behavior, right? And I feel like when it comes to emerging economies, we can take that leap, right? Because we don't have that infrastructure sort of like already built in. We don't have that cost of changing social behavior. AI becomes more interesting when it comes to changing social behavior because how do you define social behavior? It's me interacting or interfacing with a technology, right? But when it comes to AI, there is hardly any interfacing. We had to learn how to drive a car. We had to learn how to, even use a phone. But the least amount of interfacing that we have seen with the technology is AI. There's hardly any cost of social behavior. You have a technology that is primarily there to give you an output, right? So there's hardly any sort of like change in social behavior cost that one should be anticipating. And this is why you would speculate that the growth and the impact of AI is going to be very large, right? So I feel like with revenue growth, with AI, with the fact that it has an impact on emerging economies, Pakistan becomes a very interesting case. And I think this is very true if you look at it historically, right? The steam engine was created in Europe, it wasn't created in the US, right? But the US was the country where it became sort of like this network across the entire continent. It's because they had no infrastructure, right? They were back then the third world country, right? They were an extremely high growth country, but the impact and the adoption of railways in US was much larger than any other country, even if that's not where it was created. Same goes for telegraph, same goes for electricity. You had Europe, which basically had infrastructure already laid in, and for them to remove that infrastructure, for them to have that cost of changing their social behavior was so much that they could not do it, and US sort of like took over. But the irony comes in when we talk about how US is now on the other side of it, where China took the leap from a cash-based economy directly to digital payments and online payments, right? So I think this has been true historically, and the adoption of technology in emerging economies is much more faster, and I think that's an opportunity that we should think about. So to talk about the road ahead, I wanted to talk about a few things that had been said earlier in the sessions that happened. So a lot of times we hear, or we used to hear, that we don't have data. We need data. If we had data, then this would have worked very well, and we need to transform that data. We need to do our ETL and ELT pipelines and all of that. I think when it comes to foundational or language models right now, the dependency on data is reducing. I feel like with time, because we used to make machine learning models to predict what needs to happen, right? I think with language models, they can just reason it. If I know if somebody is making a lot of money, right, and I'm sure an LM model can reason that, you can sell them XYZ products. So this whole debate about us not having the infrastructure to sort of like deploy these models. For machine learning models, true, but for foundational models, I don't think it's going to hold true for longer. I know Atif Bajwa Saab in the morning said that in China you have data centers that are much bigger than the sizes of our banks, right? And that's true. We don't have the depth in our capital markets to compete with those countries, and I think we shouldn't. What's the point of us trying to make our own foundational models, right? The work that we're also doing and the federal and the policy on AI essentially, and it's going to be announced soon, is essentially that Pakistan needs to find its niche in the AI space, and we're certainly not a country that should do any work which is pre-training. We should be a country that should work on frameworks, agentic applications, bring more determinism to these models, right? Bring more applications to these models. And by the way, although China has done very well when it comes to foundational models themselves, but they have done much better when it comes to agentic applications. So I feel like there's a lot of space right now for creating applications for the purpose of revenue generation. So these are some of the examples that we have. Then again, with all of these examples, the anxiety that we have, even the examples, if I'm talking ahead, even in these examples, you would find that the data is no longer that much of an issue, because it used to be when we were building machine learning models, the predictive models where they were finding the correlation to sort of like predict what needs to happen next, right? So I feel like with LLMs, this is an advantage that we can sort of like look into. And one of the other interesting applications I think that needs to be built, and I know we've spoken a lot about hyper personalization. Yeah, foundational models could do that. We can discuss the cost. It's going to be expensive. But you can have language models also hyper personalize the information of the users, sort of like create or recommend products that cater to every customer needs. I know some of the people in the room are already working on this. So there are a lot of organizations locally and even internationally who are using models to sort of like create a digital twin, if we were, or sort of like a better sort of like understanding of their customers. So to conclude this, I think we're an emerging economy. For us, labor cost it's not a lot. That's not our major concern. If we're thinking about deploying AI, our opinion is that it should be utilized for the purpose of revenue generation. We have seen historically that it has produced much, well, historically is 2 years, but we have seen that it has churned much better results when it is deployed for the purpose of revenue generations. I think the banking industry is doing a fabulous job at that end. And I feel like that the problems that we have about not having the infrastructure, perhaps that's even better. We don't really have to remove an infrastructure that we had spent a lot of cost on, right? Perhaps it's good that we don't have that infrastructure. We can take that leap directly towards AI. So thank you so much. These are sort of like my thoughts. Thank you.